Good evening, students. Tonight, we will discuss two of the circulatory system's circuits, or repeating pathways, through which blood travels throughout the body. I mentioned their names last time. They are the pulmonary circuit and the systemic circuit. We'll start tonight with the pulmonary circuit, the parts of which you see boxed here in green. First, we need to keep in mind that the whole purpose of pulmonary circulation is to get blood to the lungs so that we can exchange carbon dioxide for oxygen. Recall from earlier in the year that carbon dioxide was made as a byproduct in cellular respiration and that it can be toxic if it builds up in your body. So we have to get rid of it by sending it in our blood to the lungs to be exhaled. Furthermore, recall that in order for cellular respiration to work, our cells need oxygen, which our blood delivers to the cells after picking it up in the lungs after we inhale. Okay, here's the pathway through which blood flows in the pulmonary circuit. First, blood from your body fills up the right atrium. That is here. I'm going to number these. You can kind of number them along with me. So this is number 1 here. That is the location of the right atrium. And that is where blood from your body is going to drain to begin the pulmonary circuit. Now, the blood that fills up the right atrium is used blood. It has already dropped off its nutrients and oxygen molecules at the cells, and it is already carrying carbon dioxide and other waste products that it picked up from the cells. We call this blood deoxygenated blood. And although it is not blue in real life, we use blue in diagrams to indicate that there's no oxygen in it. So I'm going to start tracing this pathway, and I will use blue, but just remember this blue does not mean the blood is blue. It just means there's no oxygen in it. Okay, so from spot number 1, the right atrium, blood will flow this way to this area here, which I'll label number 2. To get from the right atrium into area number 2, which is the right ventricle, we had to pass through a valve. By passing through the valve, and that valve, I identified them yesterday. It's harder to see on this one, but you can kind of see 2 little white flaps there. So we pass through the valve from the right atrium and we get into the right ventricle. From there, once the right ventricle is full of blood, it will contract, and that contraction will send blood from the right ventricle up and into the arteries that lead to the lungs. So you can see I did one side there, but remember you have lungs on both sides, so we'll also go into the lungs there. Now, the lungs are the important site of exchange. What will happen in the lungs is that the waste product CO2, the carbon dioxide, will diffuse out of the blood and into your lungs to be exhaled. And then from the air that's in your lungs, oxygen will diffuse into your blood. So we can see that in the diagram. Sorry, I'm just realizing the red's not going to show up. Let's see, I'll use pink. We can see this in the diagram as the blue changes from purple to red. That's indicating that oxygen is diffusing in. And that's what we want, because eventually we're going to have to send this blood off to the cells. From there, you can call that step 3 here. And actually, I guess we should call this 4, the exchange of oxygen here. Okay, from there, our blood is newly oxygenated and we need to return it to the heart. And the spot that we're going to return it to is this one here. I'll label it 5. This is the left atrium. And so I'll just highlight it. This blood will come back. This blood here will come back to the heart, newly oxygenated. And now we're in the left atrium. And we're actually ready to complete, that's the completion of the pulmonary circuit, and we're actually ready to start the next circuit, which is the systemic circuit. All right, so although this picture to the right is the same as the previous slide, you'll notice that a different section of it is boxed. The box this time contains the part of the systemic circuit. In contrast to the pulmonary circuit, the purpose of the systemic circuit is to get blood to the body cells so that oxygen for cellular respiration can be dropped off, and carbon dioxide waste can be picked up from the cells and taken away back to the lungs. Okay, so just like before, I'm going to show you the pathway through which blood flows in the systemic circuit. First, newly oxygenated blood from your lungs fills up the left atrium. Oops. That's here, number 1. If you noticed that this was the end of the pulmonary circuit from the last slide, you are correct. The systemic circuit is continuous with the pulmonary circuit. From there, blood will pass through a valve. Oops. Sorry, that's the left atrium, number 1. From there, blood will pass through a valve, just like before. There, highlighted in white, is the valve. And it will pass to the left ventricle here. So it's going down to the left ventricle and filling up the left ventricle. When the left ventricle is full, the left ventricle will contract, and it's going to send that blood into blood vessels that lead away from the heart and to your body cells. So we can see that here. They've split it up into body cells. These things up here that look like rectangles are supposed to represent cells of your upper body. And down here as well, more cells of your lower body. Okay, so when the left ventricle pumps, it's going to pump that blood from here into these blood vessels that lead eventually to all parts of your body. At the location of the body cells, oxygen is going to diffuse out of the blood so that it can go into the cells to be used for cellular respiration. And as an exchange, the carbon dioxide that was produced as a byproduct of cellular respiration will diffuse into the blood so it can be carried away, eventually back to the lungs to be exhaled. So that's 4. You can see this exchange taking place. Again, now you can see the blood. In the picture, it's going from blue, right down here. It's going from red to blue, indicating that the blood is losing oxygen because that oxygen is going into the cells. And you can see it again here. All right, from there, blood is going to be collected by these large veins, and it's going to be returned here and here to the location called the right atrium. And once again, you'll recognize that that's where the whole thing started. So from here, a new pulmonary circuit can begin, and then a new systemic circuit, and then the whole thing repeats over and over for basically as long as you're alive. All right, that's it for tonight. Do your Quizmodo, and I will see you tomorrow.